After a tiny little film that you may have heard of called Star Wars, it wasn't that big a deal, but for some reason George Lucas thought that it was at least successful enough for him to self-fund the sequel, The Empire Strikes Back, using loans and the previous film's profits, which was unheard of with Hollywood filmmakers at the time, and quite a daring move. This meant that Lucas was now in full command of the Star Wars series, but he did refuse to direct it, focusing more on producing and overlooking the special effects as well as funding. He hired one of his former professors to take over directorial duties, Irvin Kershner, who had a few films to his name, and originally turned George down, claiming they'd never be able to match the success of the original. However, when Kershner informed his agent, he forced him to take the job, saying that he would have to be a complete moron to pass up directing a sequel to one of the most famous movies of all time.
He has foreseen this.
The film takes place 3 years after the first movie. The crew have a new base on Vanilla Ice's home planet, while Darth Vader is hell-bent on hunting down Mark Hamill and tying him down, forcing him to talk as the Joker for countless hours for his enjoyment. The Empire learn of their location, causing an attack. Han Solo and Princess Leia, or Leia, C-3PO even pronounces it two completely different ways in 10 seconds.
It's Princess Leia, sir. She's been trying to get you on the communicator.
I turned it off. I don't want to talk to her.
Oh, well, Princess Leia is wondering about...
Make up your mind, guys.
Leia.
Ah, that's better.
We understand, don't we, Chief?
Anyway, Han Solo and Princess Leia kinda have a thing going on now. Luke gets visions from a ghostly Alec Guinness who's come back for another paycheck, advising him to go find a Jedi Master called Yoda, voiced by Frank Oz, master of the Muppets and Sesame Street, who then trains him to become stronger before realising his friends are in trouble. When it came to writing the screenplay, Lucas brought on Lee Brackett to write the originally titled Star Wars 2, holding story conferences and a treatment under the title The Empire Strikes Back was finished by late November 1977. Yep, the very same year the first movie came out.
I haven't got time for anything else.
The treatment was actually very similar to the final product, except we don't get that brilliant twist at the end. Instead, Luke's father appears as a ghost to instruct him. Why do that when you could just bribe Alec Guinness to do more cameos he hated?
I'm beginning to agree with you.
In fact, it's a surprise to no one that Guinness himself wasn't too fond of returning, but finally agreed, only working one day and only being paid 1/4% of the film's gross. It was still millions of dollars though. But hey, it's good to know that Obi-Wan Kenobi is still a douchebag, literally telling Luke to abandon all of his friends that are all in impending danger. But credit to Alec Guinness, here he actually attempts a different facial expression. Look at that effort. I must raise my eyebrows. Just a bit more. Oh, I am exhausted.
Don't do that.
Lee Brackett completed the first draft of the screenplay in early 1978, but George Lucas was very disappointed with it. However, before he was able to talk things over with her, she sadly passed away from cancer. Lucas continued writing, including the episode numbering that would be used for the future of the series, though this was originally called Episode 2. Allegedly, Lucas's disappointment with Brackett's first draft made him indecisive in the direction to take the story. He soon inserted the most famous plot twist in movie history, and George confessed this was a script he really enjoyed to write, as opposed to previous screenplays where he struggled, and he finished up 2 more drafts by April of 1978. He also aimed to take this film in a more dark and sinister direction, including Han Solo's imprisonment and unseen fate at the end.
Who'd have thought that, huh?
Lucas admits in the DVD commentary that Obi-Wan Kenobi was originally supposed to live throughout the entire trilogy, and then he died in the very first one. It was only after writing this important plot point he decided to make it a trilogy and then changed it to Episode 5. Lawrence Kasdan had just finished writing Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Lucas loved it so much he hired him to finish up work on Empire's screenplay, with director Kershner also contributing. Filming began on March the 5th, 1979 in Norway, and much like the first movie, the weather was unkind to the cast and crew, the country suffering the worst winter storm in 50 years. Like before, Lucas allowed his actors to improvise where they felt necessary. Most famous is originally Leia confesses her love to Han and he just reciprocated the feelings. Another line considered was, just remember that Leia because I'll be back. Because, you know, Terminator also ripped a lot of stuff off from this film, so why not give them another line they could have stole? This was a bit weary because Harrison Ford wasn't sure he even wanted to come back for a third film to begin with, hence this unknown outcome at the end. Ford wanted his character to be killed off, but Lucas insisted on the cliffhanger that Terminator 2 ripped off many years later in case he changed his mind. But anyway, sidetracked. Harrison Ford also felt like these weren't anything that his character would realistically say and changed it to the much better response.
I love you.
I know.
He also kept the famous twist secret as possible during filming. So much so, the actor of Darth Vader, David Prowse, again being redubbed by James L. Jones later, spoke a different line on set.
Obi-Wan destroyed your father.
And it was even done so secretly, Mark Hamill himself did not even know until the cameras were all set up for his close-up shot. That's how you surprise a motherfucker.
Well, that was a long time ago. I'm sure he's forgotten about that.
But because David Prowse has to bitch about everything it seems, he was furious at George Lucas for not informing him of the twist beforehand, saying that his acting and body language would have been completely different if he had known the actual line. Unfortunately, however, the secret wasn't 100% covered, as the novelization released a month before the film didn't even try to hide the twist. James Earl Jones, who even said the damn line, refused to believe this as a genuine plot point, convinced Darth Vader was lying to Luke until he saw the third movie.
I want proof, not leads.
Despite this film's fame, known as being the best one, Vincent Canby from the New York Times slated it. When I went to see The Empire Strikes Back, I found myself glancing at my watch almost as often as I did when I was sitting through a truly terrible movie called The Island. Lucas actually spent thousands of dollars on advertising campaigns to try to get Frank Oz's performance as Yoda an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He was declined because apparently a puppeteer does not count as an actor. Oh, but this does! But amazingly, despite this success, despite its accolades, despite its world-renowned glory as the greatest Star Wars movie to have ever existed, George Lucas originally hated it, called it the worst one of the series, and even apologized for its entire existence.
Apology accepted.
It wasn't until it was highly praised years later as the greatest one, he suddenly changed his mind. Maybe it's because out of all of the films, George Lucas had the least involvement with this one, and he just didn't want to admit that maybe someone else had made a better one than him. Ego is a hell of a drug.
But I've learned so much since then.
Honestly, yeah, A New Hope had issues, but the action saved it, and I thoroughly enjoyed the film, but this one is a vast improvement. A New Hope felt like Lucas played it safe. There's nothing wrong with that, he didn't expect it to be such a big hit, but he kept the plot simple and didn't focus too much on character or story arcs. This one, not only does the production value look a lot better, but it's a much more bold, strong, inventive, and creative premise. Director Irvin Kershner admitted that George Lucas wasn't too strong on writing characters, and he wanted to focus more on that for this film. And it worked. Mark Hamill wasn't whiny like the original movie, and his acting vastly improved. He felt like an actual relatable and real person. I enjoyed his journey with Yoda, and when he finally meets Darth Vader, the culmination was well deserved and very satisfying to see.
I understand.
C-3PO and R2-D2 are still very much the comic value, and
Oh, nice to see a familiar face. Ichuta. How rude.
Harrison Ford's character of Han Solo actually felt like he had some substance here. So in the first one, he was this loner, this money-grabbing, arrogant douche nozzle who only looked out for himself. He had to learn to trust others and actually have compassion. He had to actually allow himself to gain friends. It was subtle and not shown or developed as much as it could have been, but it was there. So then in this one, we see him treat Leia, yes, a bit shitty. It makes sense because it's all a front and deep down he's just scared to allow someone in. To allow someone to be that close to him as he's never done that before. It's a very real and very human emotion, and the character really grows because of it.
I feel terrible.
Princess Leia, on the other hand, is a complete bitch. So the movie starts, and literally all of Han Solo's dialogue towards Leia is him hitting on her. But not even in a charming way, just misogynistic, dick-headed, oh, she totally loves me way. Again, this makes sense because of his defensive personality, that's not the issue. Leia naturally rejects him constantly and hates his ego, much like in the original film. That makes sense, but where I draw the line is where she, as a form of revenge, sticks her tongue in her brother's throat, which, by the way, ew, right in front of him. That's just nasty for so many reasons. Yeah, she doesn't know it's her brother yet, whatever. But the first film clearly established Luke as the love interest. There's a brief exchange where Han mentions liking her and Skywalker tells him to piss off and star in Indiana Jones instead of porking his sister. But that's it. So Leia knows that Luke has a thing for her, and she even knows that Han Solo has a thing for her. So as a petty form of revenge, she screws with both men's feelings at the same time, giving Luke false hope and breaking Han's heart all at once.
Alright, don't lose your temper.
It's just so nasty, and even later on when Luke is fatally wounded, she kisses him again! So even after she's with Han Solo, oh, it's okay because he's frozen and it's okay because Luke's hurt? What? It's okay to cheat on your incapacitated boyfriend with your brother because he's injured. And the messed up thing is, she then goes about the rest of the film acting normal like nothing happened. And then she says,
You think that after what you did to Han, the women...
she's calling out them for how they're treating Han Solo.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Despite this, the story unfolds really well. The action picks up a lot faster in this one, and the special effects look even more stunning than in the first. George Lucas demanded they set this one on a snowy ice planet because in space scenes it's easier to hide your mistakes. He purposely put this one in a wintry wonderland to test the set designers and producers.
Betty girl. Hey, what's the matter? You smell something?
Welcome to the Himalayas!
They look so good. Yoda looks incredibly real. The fight signs are just amazing. All performances nail it, including Harvey Dent here. Some of the chase scenes are intense as hell and have your butt cheeks flinch at every passing second. The sets are absolutely impeccable. Everything looks extraordinary in this film. Darth Vader continues to be more badass than ever, having some of the coolest scenes ever shot. But I must admit, it does seem quite forced, the love story between Han and Leia. I mean, bear in mind all the events in the first film, and then this is at the 6-minute mark.
Come on. You want me to stay because of the way you feel about me?
What? When? Why? Who? Although it's surprising, I feel like it's a cool idea to have their relationship kind of begin off screen, considering it's 3 years after the first one. It's a nice touch and we join in on the story halfway through, so I kind of like that. Although when you really think about it, Han just bullies Leia into going out with him until she finally gives in and says yes just to shut him up. Even some of the dialogue just seems so forced, like they realised, wait, they're not developing, let's hurry this up.
Come on, admit it. Sometimes you think I'm alright.
Occasionally, maybe.
I mean, really think about it. What kind of message is this? Treat each other like shit and then you're the perfect couple? I mean, remember when he said,
But they're gonna kill her!
Better her than me.
they really shouldn't have shown this tiny Darth Vader hologram. It looks hilarious. Who's gonna take this seriously? When we finally see Luke and Darth Vader face off, I feel like it's a little underwhelming, like...
Obi-Wan is talking well.
Never mind. Okay, I just feel like it should have music to make it even more intense. Yes! This movie just delivered one of the greatest third acts of all time. The action is insane, the effects, the sheer storytelling, all combined makes this just pure gold, and I cannot credit this sequence enough. Most issues of this movie are nitpicks. The only one that was a really major problem was Leia, but it's nowhere near enough to bring down this entire masterpiece of a film. Honestly, it's easily one of the greatest sequels ever made. And we're only just getting started.